things that I would like to say about the UK and how I think it has gone astray. Don't get me wrong, it ain't all bad. I love the crazy fads, like England always buggering up. But you know we're gonna win the World Cup. I'm gonna start my own nation with myself and reservation. I'm gonna start my own nation with myself and reservation.
Keep the red flag flying here.
And you can tell it's been the holidays because I got totally excited and came in and and welcomed you. Welcome to Vonnie Hardman, who is the first member of the public to welcome us back, and welcome back to you, Vonnie. Hi, you're a total star, and we all know it. Welcome to Political Unmuted. We've all had our holidays and raring to go. There's so much to talk about. Let's just see how our wonderful team and enjoyed their holidays. Laura Daly, did you have a nice holiday?
What holiday? Yes, the few days I had off, I had a lovely time. Thank you, John. Did you?
Yeah, yes, very unstressful. It sort of got going the last 2 or 3 days. But sort of, Stuart, did you get a chance to have a bit of a holiday?
Yeah, my family went away and I went along with them, and then I spent the week being ill. I was poorly the whole time, and I got better just in time to come home. So
I think that's your body saying, "Oh, thank God, I can be poorly." I used to be poorly all the holidays. Sam, I mean, you've got your new super job that you've been going around. I've seen you on Facebook very, very busily. But did you get any chance to sort of rest and recharge your batteries?
Well, no, not really, because at home, doing what I'm supposed to do at home is harder than what I'm supposed to do at work. So it's all very sort of I'll go and then collapse for 3 days and rest and do nothing. So but yes, I have enjoyed it, but I will enjoy somebody else having responsibility for my children for at least some parts of the day.
Thank you very much. And it's really important, Sam, to get some break. Paul, did you have managed to get it? Because you're another person who just never stops. I tell you off all the time about it. Did you get some sort of self-time? Did you manage to get a break?
Loads, yeah. I've done loads of stopping. It was great. I had some nice people let us go and use their lovely home in Whitby, which was really nice. We had a lovely time there. And I've lost a clem and a half. I've stopped drinking. I've done all sorts of things over this holiday. I feel loads better. My hair's turned into Zardu Hasselfrau's hair, so that's all.
You make these comments all the time, and we're supposed to be getting on with the moment of the week. Zardu Hasselfrau. What's this?
Yeah, he's got a magic boat. So. Sorry, I think only nerds are getting that reference. Sorry, it takes too long to have David Hasselhoff in the 80s. Basically, I've got a David Hasselhoff 80s Baywatch hair. I don't know why. So yeah. Oh, and Leanne's asked what a clem and a half means. That means a stone and a half.
Yes, you have to start talking in English, basically. Anyway, let's start the show, everyone. And that's the team. And
oh, hang on.
Same order. Laura, moment of the week.
Okay, well, I'll go as quickly as possible. My moment of the week or month or however long we've had off has to be the little big meeting that the Women's Banner Group hosted at Red Hills, because the Durham Miners Association were so kind to help banner groups hold their own little mini big meeting, because the big meeting, or the Durham Miners Gala, wasn't able to go ahead again this year. So we focused on education, and we had workshops, and we had a comedian, and Joe Solo came up and sang and did some poetry, and it was just brilliant, really lovely, proper something good for the soul. It was really encouraging, and yeah, I needed it. It was lovely.
Thank you. Excuse me, team. Neil Terry says that's the seamless production I've missed. Lol. That's absolutely correct. This has a rustic air to it of reality. This is live TV, people, and these live Zoom, and sort of you get it warts and all. There's no sound editor cutting out the ums and ers in this, and that's what makes it so attractive. So thank you, Laura, for that. And you're absolutely right about that. They were just wonderful to see on Facebook and raised my spirits no end. Stuart, moment of your week.
Moment of my month, I'd have to say. I went to the Easton Miners picnic while we were away, and I got to go with my family, and there was banners and music, and the weather was spot on, you know, really nice day. I mean, it rained the day before and it rained the day after, so somebody was looking out for us. God
smiled on the miners. And they have such community spirit over in Easington, don't they? It's heartening.
Spectacular.
Sam, moment. Thank you, Stuart. Sam, moment of your, people are saying month, but I'll ask week.
Well, I'm getting even more into the football, John, because it's exciting times in Shildon. Actually, we did a football the other day, but we're doing one on Saturday against South Shields, which is a big deal. They're like in the 2 leagues above us. So it's exciting. But what was really disappointing in the game that we played the other day against Stockton Town was that as part of the match, we had like a food bank collection. And it just reminded me how frustrating and how galling it is that these things have become such a day-to-day sort of part of our life that people accept now. I was walking through Darlington Queen Street shopping centre the other day, and Darlington Council have taken over a whole retail unit for swapping out school uniform and things. And I just think if that happened 20 years ago, it would be shocking. And why is it not shocking now? A lot of those things have been on my mind, but altogether, very excited about the football, which I didn't think I would say.
Well, football is innately exciting, and thank you for sort of joining me on that one. Yes, that's great. So you went to see a reserves match as well, didn't you?
I did. So I took the kids to see Shildon versus Darlington Town, Shildon Reserves versus Darlington Town, and we didn't win. But the kids did sit through they did a little bit of running about, but they existed while the football was happening, which I didn't expect to happen. So I'll do more of that, because obviously taking them to the reserves is a lot cheaper than taking them to the real thing. So if we have to quit and go home halfway through, it's not the end of the world.
Yes, I always think that the reserves need more support than the main team, quite frankly. And thank you, Sam. And finally, moment of the week, Paul.
All right, so my moment of the week's kind of just happened. I was going to do Geronimo the Alpaca, which also just happened. So they just decided to kill Geronimo the Alpaca, which seems to it was 4 hours ago. So it was killed, and the poor thing, it's awful. It's harrowing, really, seeing this poor alpaca being dragged around and killed. And if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, this is the thing that of all the things that have happened, that Keir Starmer decided to, it was his hill on which he chose to die. This alpaca must die along with Keir Starmer's political career. So Starmer, for some reason, was embroiled in this argument about this alpaca near Bristol that had tested positive for TB 4 years ago. DEFRA had said it needed to die because it was going to kill all the cows that were about to be killed for meat in the local area. And Yeah, so that's just been put together. So I said that was going to be mine, so I seem to have gone on about it quite a lot. But I am going to say the actual one I'm going for is the Labour Party staff have voted to go on strike. That's just come in. I think it was approximately 75% of members of Unite have voted to go on strike from the Labour Party on a 90% turnout. I'll just get the figures there. If I can, let's just see. 78% of Unite members voted for strike action if there are compulsory redundancies on a 90% turnout. 76% of GMB members voted yes to strike if there are compulsory redundancies. Penny's in a little bit of a peony, so I'm sorting her out. And that's what that little bark was. So, so the Labour Party members of staff appear to be going on strike against David Evans, Keir Starmer, and the redundancies that they're forcing on people, which is a sad day for the Labour Party, I guess, if you care about that kind of thing, which we do. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. You cheated really there, Paul. You had two moments a week. Sort of. For me, the latter one is devastating, absolutely devastating. And a lot of positive comments, Sam, about your comments about food banks. Neil Terry, we need to call this out. It's scenes from the 1980s. Gives a job. Boys from the Black stuff. Horrific. Okay, and now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to move on to...
Now it's time for the big story.
And the big story is the planned cut to universal credit. These stories are not dreamed out of our head, viewers. It's the result of a vote in which you can take part on Political Unmuted. And I must say that I was a little bit surprised, because this is something which has been being discussed over a number of months. It's not a surprise. But nevertheless, it came top of the polls. Stuart, why is it so important that it should have such prominence in people's thoughts?
I would imagine it's the time frame that we're basically 1 month away from Rishi Sunak forcing, tens of thousands of people into deeper poverty. We've spoken about the uplift so many times on this show and other shows. And, we've spoken about how important it is. And people have come out with quite touching stories, and they've told us what it meant to them. It was dignity, it was making sure the kids were fed. They were looking forward to being warm in the winter for the first time in years. And they're pushing ahead with the removal of what is a lifeline for people. And it comes at a time where Rishi Sunak just got the planning permission for his big tennis court and his big pool and all that. And I'd had an email today from a constituent, and they'd had an email back from the MP. And lots of people are starting to get emails back from their MPs. They're starting to feel the pressure. They can feel that this cut's coming, and people are genuinely terrified. And this MP, my MP, had basically said, I trust Rishi, he knows what he's doing, and we need to incentivise people to get back to work. So a good 40% of people on universal credit at the start of the pandemic, were in work. It's much higher now. In some places, it's about 50% of the people in a community will be on universal credit. And these MPs think it's about being lazy, that by taking away dignity and security, and taking food out of kids' mouths will incentivize people to go get a job. That's what it's come down to, and people are genuinely terrified.
I mean, we say a lot, Stuart, don't we, that, you know, they just don't realize, these people, that sort of, they don't realize that most people on universal credit have a job, or many people on university credit have a job anyway. They don't realize the effect of a £20 cut when all you're getting, you're going to go down to £74 a week. They don't realize that it's sort of, it isn't people. But are you really telling me that they don't know these things? Sort of, because I would put it to you that it isn't, that it's part of a cynical callousness which plays that as a political card to enable them to really oppress the poor. Surely they know what they're doing, Stuart.
They quite frankly admit it. In their emails, you'll get the response back normally that the pleased that Rishi had supported so many people, and it was a lifeline for, you know, tens of thousands of people. They state, and they're quite proud that they helped these people, but now they're going to take that away. You know, they're completely aware of what this means to people, and they're completely aware of what it's going to do to people, and it's almost, they're quite happy to do it. They know it should really, it's going to cost people votes if you think about it in red wall areas, but they're still quite happy to go ahead because, quite frankly, they're cruel bastards. I'm
going to move on, Stuart. Thank you. I could talk to you for a long time to get your view, which is right from the cutting edge. I know that. Sam, I mean, what can... so this is just going inevitably through. They've just set their face in like flint and they're moving ahead with it. I mean, what do you advise people listening to this broadcast to do about this? What can we do about this terrible thing?
Well, like you say, there isn't actually really anything much actionable you can do at this point. You know, we've done the letter writing campaigns, we've talked to our MPs. There's not actually going to be a vote on it. It's just going to be done. So I think we just need to remember and make sure that people remember at the next election what is going on and who is responsible for it. And I think probably if I was going to pick one actionable thing that people who are listening to this can do, is to just challenge those narratives and that othering that we have of people who are on benefits. When somebody says, oh, and her over there, she's never worked a day in her life and she has better holidays than me, don't let them get away with that. Challenge it. You know, and just say, well, you know, you never know what I've got a friend who you would think to look at her, she has a very nice life, but actually X, Y, Z. We need to chip away, because it's those stories, that narrative of the feckless poor that the Tories are really winning on, and it's our own people, the working class people, who are being pitted against our own on this, and we really need to chip away from those stereotypes, because they're not real.
So, I mean, this is a key thing for me, that in fact the anger against benefit cheats and the sort of the support for a cruel universal credit regime, actually lots of it's coming from the working class who are on universal credit themselves, because sort of they are saying, well, yes, but I agree with it. I'm not like those shirkers. I agree with this cruel regime and the regime that is punishing them, when in fact they're working all day. They've got two jobs. So how do you break through, Sam, that kind of way of thinking?
I just think for so long, I mean, it's part of our culture, isn't it? You don't talk about religion or politics for so long. You just hear people saying things, and even if you don't agree with them, you just sort of, okay, I'm going to change the subject because it's really uncomfortable to disagree with you. But we need to say, well, actually, I've got a friend who has a blue badge but can still walk to the car, right? Those things, because that's the type of, I mean, it's specifically, I've got lots of friends who are on disability, PIP, personal independence payments, and I get a lot of that. people who are disabled talking about how somebody else isn't disabled enough for the support they get. And it's all because people are living in fear. That's what it comes down to. And they've been taught to bring that fear out against their people who are living in the same street as them, rather than the people who are keeping them on the poverty line.
Thank you very much, Sam. Some wonderful points there. God bless you. Laura, what's your take on all this?
Well, I think, I agree with obviously everything that's been said so far. That, the Tories have made a career out of finger pointing and being there to give us the victim and to give us the perpetrator of anything that's gone wrong anywhere. And of course, it's never them. It's always somebody else. It's either, refugees coming over to pinch our housing or our jobs, or, those people down the street who get more money than you because they've had more kids than you. And there's always a handy person that we can blame all of our woes on, when in actual fact, if we have a look at the history of all the things that have gone wrong over time, and at successive governments, not just Tory governments, but let's just have a look at the last 10 years, all the bad things that's happened while austerity's been in place. And actually, one of the first arguments I had with a Tory at the time councillor about this was on the original radio political unmuted show, when we were just political, John. And that was actually with my now MP, who just couldn't accept that you could blame Tory austerity for anything, because they were saving the world with that. They were saving everyone, they were saving money, and look at where we are. We're arguing over 20 quid. And it's like that 20 quid could literally make the difference between life and death for some people, but let's face it, for most of the Tories and their friends, is not even a drink. It's not even the amount of money of a drink for those people. And it's absolutely pathetic that we can live in a country where the disparity of wealth is so vast that we're arguing amongst ourselves for these tiny pennies, while everybody else buys yachts and gets their swimming pools redone and cleans their moats out. And what kind of life is that? What kind of reality are we living in where that's allowed to happen? We, as the working class, as Samantha rightly said, need to stick together and stand up for each other and support each other and call out all the shit that's being said about other people, because we are in this together, to coin a phrase of David Cameron, except we're not in it with them. We're in it on our own. We've been left. We need to, there's millions of us. We need to come together and fight all of this, because it is one thing after another. And universal credit is the one that's bothering people now. But there'll be another thing around the corner. The next thing will come along, and we'll keep being in this position where we're being told whose fault it is, and people are believing it. And we've just got to keep sending that message that that's not right.
Paul, I took my wife to the hospital today, and in most hospitals you have to pay parking. I went, and while I was waiting for her to have a procedure, I bought a newspaper, £2.50, and had a cup of coffee, £2.75, and there you go. There's your £20 spent. And sort of how £20 goes like that, and sort of and is it not a trick that they've got us squabbling about £20? Whereas in fact, they're sort of taking off, what do you call it? Skimming off literally millions. And there's this disparity between the reality of £20 and what's happening, sort of what the rich are doing. Why can't people see that, in fact, we don't need to be taking £20 from the poor? We need to be giving them another £20 or £50, because it's impossible to live on the kind of sums that we're giving in sort of as benefits. Sort of what it goes to the hub of the attitude that can actually quite approve of the one and sort of go mad about the other. What's happening here, Paul?
For me, I think people understand this. People aren't stupid, and people do know what's going on. And when it's explained to them in simple terms, they will get their head around this. I want to refer to Neil Turry had mentioned about how it's economically, what did he say, economically stupid. I often use the term economically illiterate. It's economically stupid to take away the £20 uplift. It is economically illiterate because what will happen is if you keep that in place from a completely selfish point of view, if you keep that in place, then that money will be spent locally. Because people who don't have a lot of money spend their money locally. They don't they don't get a massive contract from the NHS and then put it in the Cayman Islands. They will spend that in local shops, and that means local people will benefit from that. And that's how economies are supposed to work. So putting that amount of money into your local economy, and I think Stuart will have the figures, but it was on our show on Saturday night on Socialist Night Live, focused on this. I think it was something like £3.5 million or something like that.
Like Sedgefield, for instance, it's over 9 million quid a year.
So there you go.
Sedgefield alone.
So there's 9 million quid a year for the people in the local community. Are those people not going to spend that 20 quid? They will. But what they will do as well is they'll do sensible things like maybe buy broadband that's stable. Or maybe they'll get a fuel contract because they'll be able to do that and actually save money in that way and have more money because they're the ones who are fleeced out of that system. But we know this. Everyone can have this explained to them and everyone understands this. There is a lot of work getting people to believe the opposite. And that work's occurring all the time. It's occurring in think tanks. And the worrying thing for me is there is a lot of political economy in this. If you get this message out and explained, we saw this in 2017, you can win an election on this. Like the Labour Party could win an election on this. And I think to myself, why aren't they? Why aren't they going after this? And the difference is, for me, that in politics at the moment, there is no will to change anything. There is no will to make people's lives better. And there is something else going on. And one of the things that was mentioned to me was that the thing that they found most scary about Jeremy Corbyn is members' money paid off all the debts. The idea of big money no longer calling the shots in politics was abhorrent. And look at this. Big money, again, calls all the shots in politics. So that's why we're not talking about this being good economics. It is good economics to give people this £20 uplift. Give them more and give everyone a bit more and keep that in the local economy. That is much better economics than billionaires becoming a third more wealthy in the space of a year during a pandemic. Far better. And everyone I speak to agrees. Left, right, centre, whatever political persuasion they say they're from, they agree with that. So why is not one single political party going down this route?
Thank you very much indeed, everybody. I'm bringing this to an end because we have three really important topics to do in the last half hour of the show. Oh, golly, some of these comments. Neoliberals don't believe in the multiplier effect. They think public money is spent into a black hole, and that whole thing, that sort of the red wall, that sort of public spending is or the pullback on public spending is wrecking red wall constituencies. Matt Lungley, fantastic comment about the fact that we need a higher minimum wage. The whole thing of the balance of wealth in our society is to pot. We could go on all night about these things, but I'm going to move on now. If I can remind in public my team that we have 10 minutes on each of these things. Paul, Afghanistan.
Can I go at a completely different angle from the way I've seen it reported? if you don't mind. I think a lot of people at home know what's going on in Afghanistan. They know about the evacuation. They know how terrible it is that the people of Afghanistan are going to be treated appallingly. They know it's terrible that women are going to be treated badly. And again, we did a special on this on Socialist Night Live, not last Saturday, but the one before, which was absolutely amazing. We had Gary Coleman, who served in Afghanistan in the British military. And we had Mohammed Azif, who is an Afghanistan refugee, and we had someone from the Prisma. What was his name? So, anyways, he was really amazing, a journalist from Spain.
Juan,
the journalist from Spain, and he was absolutely incredible. And we went into a great deal of detail on what was going on this. But what I want to talk about is, it's really strange that, if I think back, would any of the politicians, everyone's saying we did the wrong thing going in, and Blair said we'd be out within a year, and now he's saying, we should never come out, and he's saying all these things, and everyone's doing. There's only one group of people, and that's the people on the left, who are saying, actually, we've totally done the wrong thing on Afghanistan. We should never have gone in. There needs to be a completely different approach to foreign policy. And you've got all these establishment politicians all kind of arguing about symptoms of the thing they've created. But let's think about it. People may be critical of Tony Blair. Would any political party have done anything different at the time? I don't think so. I think they go in. I think the Conservatives go in with America, no problem at all. They invade Afghanistan. Blair invades Afghanistan. The only people I can think of who wouldn't have been, who could have possibly been around the Labour Party at that time, would have been the Labour left, maybe Tony Benn or someone who's thinking totally differently. So, but again, keeps on being proven right. So why are we not listening to people on foreign policy that seem to be getting it right every time? And why is there such a consensus around bombing and all these things? And you can go back to World War II about Churchill and Hitler, and they all agreed, and Stalin, they all agreed that intensive bombing is a really, really good strategy and that it will destroy people's spirit. What was it? It was Churchill's mate who wrote this thing up about it. Anyway, I'll go into that another time. But they all agreed on this thing, which is absolute nonsense, and yet we seem to keep on doing the same thing. We seem to keep wanting to invade countries rather than bring people together, and the West are completely failing on foreign policy, and there was no attempt whatsoever by the USA to actually build a country that could stand on its own. It fell like a pack of cards within days, because they didn't want an Afghanistan that could stand on its own 2 feet and possibly decide to go and do a deal with China. They wanted a country that needed the USA. And when the USA left, a country that needs the USA is going to fall straight away. And that's what happened.
Mark Lungley says the USA should never have destabilized Afghanistan in the 1980s. Would you agree that that's the start of it? I don't know whether I would. Who do you think to blame, Paul?
Well, the Americans were very pro Mujahideen, weren't they? The Americans. There's an American minister. You can find this video on YouTube, and he's going, this is your holy war. Go out there and cause holy war, because at the time it was a proxy war for the Cold War in Afghanistan, because the Russians were trying to go in. It's all about resources. And it's actually about the opium trade as well, which is it's a huge thing. Stock markets are feeling the effects, because a lot of big businesses and a lot of big money actually relies on massive black market money to get laundered through it. So, in order for the financial systems to work, they need to make sure that opium's coming out of Afghanistan. Honestly, it's an absolute mess when you find out what's going on about it. And I can't really bring myself to go into that much detail about it. But that country has been destabilized by superpowers for their own benefit. And that's both Russia and the USA. And they both have a lot to answer for in that.
Sam, an awful lot of comments talking about war is business, war makes money, military industrial complex. I mean, is it as simple as that? That these poor people are suffering because of industrialists, military businesses in the Western world?
Well, what you got to remember is once you enter the world of business, you enter this sort of alternative morality because it is the legal duty of any business director to serve its shareholders and to improve the value of the company, right? It's not their legal duty to do the right thing morally. And that's one of the reasons that I'm not a very good business person, because I couldn't do that. And I was working textiles, and really the only way to grow my company was to take advantage of people working in sweatshops on the other side of the world, and I just couldn't do it. And even if you do manage to find a way to get the pieces of fabric sewn together ethically, you've got to have them produced, and we've got countries in this world that are growing cotton instead of growing food for their people, and they're starving because it's economically better for them to sell cotton than to eat. So it's on so many levels the perversion that's caused by a capitalist system where we value money over people's lives. So it's really not a surprise that it extends to weaponry as well, because every step of the way, it's somebody else's. I just sell the bombs, I don't drop them. They might not want to kill children with them. It's not my responsibility. Every single level is somebody else's responsibility. And I just think you just have to look at it as a problem with capitalism, and you need to look at what we value in society and what we and ever growing GDP does not mean happier people, unfortunately.
Thank you. There's a lovely poem, Sam. I am the one who dropped the bomb. So to look it up on YouTube, a fabulous poem, actually. Everybody ought to run. Do you think there's immense hypocrisy here, Laura? I mean, everybody's screaming that we need to come out of Afghanistan. And so then when they do come out of Afghanistan, everybody's screaming that we made a mistake coming out of Afghanistan. Did you not think that there's just a lack of realization that in a war, people get harmed and damaged? When you go to war, people get harmed. Your own people and other people get harmed, and people just don't. They want a sanitized war where nobody gets hurt, and it just goes on forever. Do you think there's a lack of reality in some of these MPs who are saying that we shouldn't have come out?
I think everyone's saying this and everyone's saying that. I think your everyone's are two different groups of people. There are the people who think we should never have gone, who are now saying we should stay and tidy up the mess we've made. And yeah, I agree with everything that Paul just said, as is so often the case, that there's a lack of reality there, but they need. The UK and the US do need to accept their lot in this and their responsibility and role in this. It's been massive. We essentially have caused this unsettled state, and I'm not even sure what would have happened had we stayed. Me, I like a good conspiracy theory. I'm of the belief that there's been deals done here behind the scenes before anybody left. I don't think the US military have just come out because they think, okay, job done, off we go, we've done our job. I think there's been a deal done there. I don't know what for, but suddenly Taliban soldiers can fly massive, really expensive helicopters in the last 3 days since they've taken over. Well done. That hasn't happened. That's been, a process over a matter of years. And to what end? There's the argument there, has something been done with China? Are they now going to be the overlords of the Afghanistan people? It's all cloaked under mystery, and again with the whole world leaders pointing the finger at the bad guy. And I don't think just touching on something Samantha was saying there, I don't think that any politician, and certainly not world leaders, should have any interests or shares in any big business, because it's just immoral, especially when big business at the minute.
I mean, in your opinion, does this prove that Jeremy Corbyn was spot on from the very beginning? When you talk about any politician, I mean, there's
yes. Well, yes, it does. But we can't keep harping on about Jeremy as much as I think he's fantastic. But yeah, he was on the right side of history, has proven to be forever, and will continue to be. And we need to have a good, strong look at the interests of the people who are leading our countries and why they're making the decisions they are.
Thank you. Absolutely spot on. Thank you. Finally, Stuart, my view is that all this is a failure of intelligence, not a failure of diplomacy or even of military action. Sort of, we've just done the wrong thing at the wrong time because our intelligence services have not provided us with the necessary information to make the correct decisions. Now that's very much more forgiving of the government than these people who are sort of saying it's all a deceit, it's all a conspiracy, it's all about money. I mean, what do you think lies behind all of this disaster?
I think it speaks to the mindset of the kind of people who are in power. I saw on the news somebody said we need to treat the Taliban as if they're our future friends. And it's funny that people say that when, they're bad guys with guns. But we don't say the same thing when we're talking about nations who need aid or support. We only treat people with that kind of reverence and respect when we feel like we're going to get a hard time. It's pick and choosing what you want, when you want. And there's absolutely no principled guiding, decision-making process in any of this. It's just what they feel like on the day.
God bless you. Fabulous comments, everybody, on the stream, which Sam will pick up in the second half of the programme. As I said, I had to go to the hospital this morning, and so as a treat, I took my wife to McDonald's. I know how to show my wife a good time, and that's because she's on a very strict diet. And a McDonald's meal just broke the whole thing for her. It was desperately naughty of her. No banana milkshake. No banana milkshake. Supply chain problems. Sam, what do you think?
So this is the absolutely foreseeable consequence of Brexit, which isn't even a new thing. This has been happening for like a year, that we haven't been able to get the building materials we need in this country. I can tell you two things straight off the back. There's a play park in the town over from me, Bishop Auckland, which hasn't been built because they can't get the materials. There's a huge social housing redevelopment project in Shildon, the town where I am, which hasn't happened because they haven't been able to get the building materials. But now it's starting to hit food. It's hitting Nando's and McDonald's, with them not being able to get their food products over. And it is allegedly hitting some supermarkets. I haven't seen many supermarket shelves empty, but then I haven't been in many supermarkets because I don't do that as much as I used to before the pandemic. So the first thing, again, I'm going on me anti-capitalist drum banging again, because what did the government think was going to happen? Okay, according to conservative ideology, the market will solve its own problems, and it will lead to the most effective and the most what's the word? Yeah, it will solve everything. Efficient. There we go. The market will, but it hasn't happened, has it? Because the market doesn't create the most efficient outcome for society. The market creates the most profitable outcome for its shareholders, as I was mentioning before. So we have a situation where the market totally destroyed the working conditions for our long distance lorry drivers. And then when the workers who came in to take over that work decided that they either couldn't or didn't want to work in British companies anymore because of Brexit or whatever other issues, have gone home. There's no one to fill that workforce. And the government have done absolutely nothing to incentivize people to work in that sector, which is totally unforgivable and tone deaf and any other superlatives you can think of. I just can't understand how short-sighted they've been. We could have told you this would happen in 2015. It's 2021.
Thank you, Sam. Sorry to cut you off. Sort of the time is short. Paul, Jane Strange says it wasn't inevitable. A Labour Brexit, this wouldn't have happened. Is she right?
Paul, you're muted.
I am so sorry, everyone.
That was so good, everybody. You've no idea what you've missed.
Okay.
Gold there.
Paul.
Oh man, it wouldn't be political unmuted without me being slightly muted for a little while, would it? You know, and doing other things and reading the comments, etc. But yeah, I want to go down the anti-capitalist route like Samantha has, because she was absolutely amazing. But I also want to say that as well as like the Brexit thing, I think it would have been better. I think it would have been better handled under Labour. I was always an advocate of doing a Norway deal and then going on a deal-by-deal basis after that, and that way you don't have those supply chain problems. But the other supply chain problems were there anyway. You had the driving crisis that Samantha's referred to there, which was a huge problem and continues to be a huge problem. The other thing is as well is if you continually need to create more stuff, if you continually need to create more profit, and then what's going to happen is an exponential growth in the amount of stuff that needs to be transported, and there's only a limited number of roads if you're not building into infrastructure and if you're not paying people properly. And also as well, if you are not supplying locally, like we've got like in Britain you've got like Irish potatoes, and then you've got like in France you've got British potatoes, and like why aren't we just having our like own potatoes and then just like, you know, things like that, stupid supply chain things. Like why are we spending our time moving things to Australia? Like, oh, we'll shove our beef to Australia and they can send their beef to us for some reason, destroying the environment. That's another supply chain problem that capitalism is not going to solve. Globalization is an issue here. And, you know, there's an advantage in certain types of globalization, but when you've got something where you've got like a German company that's manufacturing something that they send to the USA to package, and then it's a USA thing and they send it over there, and, you know, like, or any of our cars, there's things flying around the place all the time. If you've got a limited number of drivers, what's going to happen? You're going to run out of things to get in there. Like, we're running out of chickens in Nando's and all sorts of things. It's absolutely preposterous.
No chickens in Nando's.
Yeah.
Is this going to ruin, on a much more sensible level, is this going to ruin Christmas, Laura, or is it just going to go away and be a flash in the pan?
Wow. Well, I don't know that this will necessarily ruin Christmas, because we always make the best of things and we don't have to have all the, you know, the traditional stuff that we're supposed to have. Everyone can just have beans on toast for Christmas. That's fine, as long as people are together and all of that stuff. But actually, the major problem for me with the supply chain issues is that the medication, all types of medication that just aren't getting here, that is going to make Christmas a damn sight harder for a lot of people, I tell you. I mean, even things like I've got a few friends who were on treatment for HRT and menopause, things like that, who are just struggling to get through every single day, and they're being put on all kinds of medication that just isn't working for them, and they can't get the stuff that they know works for them. And it's absolutely ruining their lives. So if that doesn't get sorted, then yes, Christmas will be ruined along with every other day, because we saw this coming. I don't even work in that industry, and I saw this coming. So how the people who get paid bloody thousands to sort it out didn't is beyond me. It's all capitalism. I agree with Samantha and Paul on that.
Just we haven't time for this question, but sort of, if it's capitalism, how is it Brexit? Because basically what you're saying is that they would have found some way to make more money if we'd stayed. It's
Brexit. It's capitalism. It's a capitalist Brexit. That's why. We could, like Paul said, if we'd gone down the Norway deal, then everything would have been okay, and we could have just come out and done different deals along the way when we needed them. This was just selfishness and somebody wanting to get Brexit done because it was a vote winner at the time, and because they don't care, because those people will just get what they need whenever they need it because they've got the money.
Thank you so much, Stuart. Last word as always to you.
We're struggling to do blood tests because of this. So
Yes,
this is
Colin White who said no tubes.
Yeah, so this is legitimately life or death for some people. This will...
Excuse me 2 seconds interrupting you. Barbara, if you're listening, my wife knows this very well. She's been waiting months and months and months for an absolutely vital blood test. It hasn't helped because they've reorganized all the laboratories as well. I mean, there's no doubt that's got something to do with money as well. Sorry, Stuart, I interrupted you. Carry on.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's such a huge concern that, it feels like The Walking Dead, thinking that you can't get a blood test which is a very basic part of, healthcare systems. And if we can't do that, we're very close to teetering onto a real situation here.
As all some fabulous comments. I know diabetics who stockpiled insulin so they had over a month's supply because they were so scared of going into diabetic ketoacidosis. One of the problems with this, which we've seen in the pandemic as well, is that the very stockpiling exacerbates the problem. And yet you cannot expect people not to just make sure. And it goes for toilet rolls as much as for insulin. Very, very worrying. Thank you very much for raising that, Laura. Finally...
great to hear of someone from Norway, though. Paul the Knight's from Norway there, getting involved after I said that I would have taken a Norway deal. It's quite interesting.
I think I would, mind you, I would agree. Or a Canada deal, very similar. Neil Terry, no, I didn't buy my wife a Happy Meal. I bought chicken selects and chocolate, a McFlurry. Anyway, these are the important things in life, people. You don't have to understand. Last question. It may just be Laura. We can overrun a little bit, Paul says, because we started a little bit late, so within the hour. But it's going to be mainly Laura. Talk to me. You're going to have to start by explaining what the hell this is about. Talk to me about Sharon Graham and what on earth has been going on there, because that came as a complete, surprise. I never heard of her.
I think okay, so Sharon Graham has been elected as the new General Secretary for Unite. I think she took post today, did she? Anyway, she is now. The fight was kind of between Gerard Coyne, Steve Turner, and Howard Beckett. Howard Beckett stepped down to support Steve Turner. He was very much the left candidate and very visible, and Howard Beckett was, everybody knows who he is. He's very visible character. So I think people thought it would be between him and Gerard Coyne, who is considered more to the right. Sharon was the only female candidate. Her whole thing was very much about members and membership and getting better deals for workers rather than sort of tackling the political side of things. But also, she didn't do all of the bells and whistles on social media that the other candidates did. She sort of I think her tack was very much getting involved with branches and the members themselves. And obviously that sort of campaigning has paid off for her. She got like over 46,500 votes. And I think Steve Turner got 41. So it was pretty close, but there was only 124,000 votes that were actually cast. So yeah, she is now the General Secretary, first ever female General Secretary of Unite. So pretty proud of that. I'm just really looking forward to seeing what she's going to do, because obviously I don't know a huge lot about her. I don't know her full history. I know the Socialist Worker Party were backing her and she's considered left wing. So so that ticks my boxes, left wing, I'm all over that. And somebody who wants to improve things for members and believes that members' voices and what they need should be a priority. Again, I absolutely agree with that. I think that's fantastic. And I really like what she's been saying about the link between the Labour Party and Unite. Howard Beckett was very vocal in opposition to the Labour Party, and people loved him because of that, because he was holding Keir Starmer to account on numerous issues, which was really good. Somebody needs to do that. But Sharon's come out and said that she will sit down with Keir Starmer and talk to him, but she's not going to play the political games. She's not interested in that. She's only interested in what the Labour Party can do to help unite members and help workers get better deals, which I really liked. I thought that was a really good stance to take on it. She doesn't want to get involved in silly disputes within the Labour Party, and she wants to just focus on members. So yeah, I'm excited to see what she can do with it. Hopefully she will stick to her word and do what the Sharon Graham campaign bus says on the tin, unlike Keir Starmer and his 10 pledges. So I guess time will tell.
Stuart, do you agree with Laura that we're likely to see a significant change in political emphasis from Unite in future, that it's going to change the direction of its direction politically?
I don't think it's going to change its direction politically. I think it's going to change how visible it does it. I think there's a realization now within Unite that to get things done, you're doing it on behalf of the members. They come first. And part of where you have power is with your membership structure, and people that you can, pull towards your agenda. There's absolutely no point, spending a lot of time and money and effort speaking to people who have absolutely, no chance of supporting you in the slightest. You need a really strong, solid base of people who are going to go out and make those arguments and, win power for you if you want to make the change. And I don't think there's, much interest in trying to win power in the Labour Party if you don't have any power there in the first place. So I think there's a change on how, the organisational aspects are going to go on. It's definitely clearly very left-wing still.
A lot of people mentioning Unite Community and sort of how she's not visibly enthusiastic, and there's a bit of concern about that. Do you share that concern?
I do. One of the things for me is when people speak about workers, and often what they're thinking about is people who get wages, when in reality, workers is everybody who, whether they're volunteering in the community, they're a single parent, that they're looking after friends or family or carers, they're all workers, and they still, require people to represent them and to organise for them and to, win battles for them. So we don't want to reduce Unite to just people who are paying, being paid wages. That's definitely something I don't want to see.
Thank you. By the way, hello Heather. Heather's very poorly at the moment. We're all rooting you to get well. Get well as quickly as you can. Very briefly, because we are out of time. The sort of time. I'm mentioning that word very clearly. We're out of time. But have you got anything to add, Sam? First.
Yeah, I didn't vote for her. I am a Unite member, but I think it's really great actually, because the fact that she won and that I didn't think she had a chance of winning. John, you don't know of her. The fact that like she knew where her support was and she was talking to her supporters and not talking to people like me who weren't her target shows what a great organizer she is. So I'm really excited to see what Unite does next. And if I could turn back time, I would vote for her. But exactly, she wasn't targeting me. And it just goes to show actually how much of social media is just smoke and mirrors. I love social media for lots of reasons, and I'm very good at it, but we do put too much stock in it. It's all about having the right conversations with the right people.
Saying the right thing. Last one, Vonnie Hardman. Paul, very, very briefly indeed. She thinks we're witnessing the beginning of the end of the historical links between the trade union movement and the Labour Party.
Yeah, the Bakers Union are going to disaffiliate because the Labour Party are going to boot out their General Secretary. So, like one of the founders of the Labour Party, the Bakers Union, that historical link has gone, and that feeds back into what I was saying earlier on about where is the political opposition to these things that are so obvious. Like, these are easy wins. It's low-hanging fruit for any political organisation to say actually workers are being treated badly and all the things we were talking about earlier on. So yeah, I think it is. I think if the Labour Party continues on its current track, it shouldn't really be called the Labour Party because it isn't there to represent Labour. It is there to represent establishment or boss. But there's already a brand called Boss, so they probably can't call themselves that.
Great news, Heather, that you're out of hospital as well. Thank you so much, everybody. I thought you were spot on tonight, and a number of people are saying so. Now, you know what happens, everybody. What happens now is that we play Joe Solo. I go and top up my glass with fizzy water, and we come back, and Sam has been multitasking, looking at your comments, and she's going to have a little chat with people about those things as well. You don't have to stay with us, but most people do. See you in 5 minutes. Bye.
My name is Jack Atkins and I'm not afraid, and I live and die by this vow that I've made. The only good fascist, a dead one, they say, and around the rear we are. When I first left all them months ago, I told them I'd come not to kill but to cure. Well, for an ambulance driver my shot's pretty sure. And around the railway are. There'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. The fascists have come for our freedom, and we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here today. I told my mother now, mother, be strong. For the left way is right and the right way is wrong. And you can stick that on my grave when I'm gone. For I'm a real we are. There'll be no pass-around, no pass-around, no pass-around today. Fascists have come for our freedom. We ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here today. Cast may be cast, and the cast may be cast, but you armies of darkness, you best do your worst. 'Cause to win, yeah, well, you gotta get past those first, and around we are. There'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. The fascists have come for our freedom. We ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here, no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. No pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. No pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. The fascists have come for our freedom. We ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here today. Keep the red flag flying there.
Oh no, where'd my voice go? Hello. I've obviously not been using it as much as I'm used to. I'm like a 12-year-old boy. What's going on? Thank you all for joining us for our first show back after the break. We've had a fantastic raft of comments. What I will say, which I know is a type of thing you're sick of hearing, but if you did enjoy the show, give it a share, right? Because we love you and you're very loyal, but we could do, there's space for more people. We can have some more people, right? So please do give it a share or tag somebody you think that might enjoy it. Or if you've got a local trade union group or a local political group of any description, give it a share, see what happens. And that'd be nice. That'd be really groovy. Okay, we've had some fantastic comments, and some. Is there anything particularly you've seen, Paul? You usually see something and go, "Oh, have you seen that?"
There was some absolute crackers, but a lot of it was like within the context of what we're saying and we referred to them. There's a question there. It's nice to see Quantum Skyline. He's just had his car blow up a couple of weeks ago, so that's quite nice to have him back here. Lovely to hear. Heather is loads better, which is really brilliant. I think that'd be nice for our podcast listeners to hear as well, because after John was saying that she's poorly, so she's saying she's much better, which is lovely to hear. Chris Hood's asking about the Police and Crime Commissioner for County Durham and Darlington approving plans for the centralised custody and investigation suite in Spennymoor. We talked about this, didn't we, ages ago, and we kind of came to the agreement that we thought was a terrible idea to do it. I don't see why any of us would have changed our opinion on that being a terrible idea, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, obviously, you could say this is me towing the party line and backing somebody up who's a Labour Party member. But actually, a few weeks ago, what date was it? The 11th of August, there was a news article came out about failings following a death of a man at Peterlee station. And actually, it highlights the issues that we've got, which is our custody suites around County Durham are totally unfit for use and are actually putting people at risk. And we're talking about very vulnerable people. And we must point out that not everybody who is detained in a custody suite is a criminal. And even if they are a criminal, they don't deserve to die for whatever they've done to end up there. And there's a lot of the public. It's not something that it's easy to sell to the public about spending money on prisons or people who've committed crimes or people who may have committed crimes. The fact of the matter is, we need a state-of-the-art facility that's got appropriate CCTV that can cater for people who may be suffering from drug or alcohol addiction and mental health issues. We just don't have that at the moment. Yes, I would absolutely love to have these high-value facilities spread around County Durham, but unfortunately, we've been living under Tory austerity for more than 10 years, and the police have been cut to the bone. So I honestly think it's the police trying to do the best with the things that they've got, and the financial risk of the lawsuits that will come to them after they've been told that their facilities are unfit for use and then continue using them are way more than the cost of the new facility in Spennymoor. It's a tricky one, and I really don't. It's not great to have people driven all the way from Seaham to Spennymoor to spend a night in the cells. But that's the reality of Tory cuts after 10 years, isn't it?
But just to come in on you, I didn't say anything the last time we discussed it because there was sensitive information which I didn't feel I could divulge. But there's many police who will tell you that it's a much better the situation than we have at the moment. And Sam's absolutely correct that many of the custody suites are not only in an appalling state, they are non-functional. And so people are saying, they're going to have to drive all the way from Easington to Spennymoor. At the moment, they're having to drive all the way from Easington to Darlington. And sort of now, is this the best possible solution? No, Sam's absolutely right. The best possible solution would be to have the money to spend on up-to-date, proper suites in a number of situations. But I don't think we have that, the possibility of that yet. And sort of the other thing that was pointed out to me by the police who were very much for it was that the people who are working at that centralised, specialised custody suite will not just be the local sergeant who really doesn't want to do the job because it's a horrible job, that one. Sort of, they will be specialised and it will be much more streamlined and it'll be much more efficient. And at the moment, police are going to these very inefficient, very inadequate custody centres, and they are waiting hours whilst the people they take there are processed. Whereas when you've got a proper suite working properly, then that will be much more quicker. And in fact, in this kind of way, which is counterintuitive, it should put more police officers back onto the streets doing their job sooner. That is the argument of the police. Now the PCC is questioning this, and let's get to the bottom of it. Let's do it properly. But it's one of those things where there's arguments on both sides, and the knee-jerk reaction is not always the first immediate right one.
So am I getting this right, that this is like, so everything is so bad at the moment that even this bad idea is better than the situation that we're in now? So dear me, well, it's a bit pretty bleak, isn't it? The whole thing. I'm more of like what I think it was Neil. We need more mental health services, social services, because that's what the police are dealing with. That's what police have been speaking to, saying they're having to deal with mental health situations rather than crimes, or some of them just like, hitting people at protests, things like that, every now and then.
In any case, it's one of the most difficult things in politics to change your mind and to look at data and decide on what the right thing to do is, rather than what perhaps the best thing to do for your career is. So if that is indeed what Joy has done, I totally take my hat off to her. And in terms of perhaps changing our mind on it and whatever that means, we'll see in a couple of months what else other politicians change their mind on, and maybe there's a few people who have to eat their words in the next few months in local politics.
Are you wanting to talk, Stuart? Were you wanting to say something?
Sorry.
I'm just right, because clearly this is a situation where the finances and the time frame have really made the decision for the Police and Crime Commissioner, rather than because these cuts are across the board, though, aren't they? So if this is happening for the police, imagine what's happening in social services and in the NHS, and all these organisations having to make, the least bad decision. And eventually that's all going to turn into one giant car crash of the least bad decision, and it's all going to crumble.
Can I ask you a question, Samantha? Carl Alexander Rosser says specialised and streamlined sound like euphemisms for privatised to me. Now, I wasn't of the understanding that we're privatising this. I do take both Stuart and Paul's comments that sort of. And it's what's happened in schools, and it's what's happened in the NHS, that sort of money gets stressed. So the answer is centralize bigger, huge, big things, and everybody goes, and it'll be much, much cheaper. And very often it's much, much more horrid. But that's the way, I think Stuart's right. People are trapped by the finances of it.
I think maybe what Samantha was saying about streamlining things was the genuine use of the word that privatising people use to make it sound like they're not doing privatisation. So there's probably a little bit in that, the genuine use of it being lost because of how it's been misused. Did you see the one from Mark Lungley about Mark Drakeford?
Yes.
I like that one.
Do you want to talk about that one? Do you want to give us a little bit of a...
Well, tell me all about it. Yes, what's going on here? What's this about?
So it's developed actually during the show a little bit. So it's funny, I posted something on my Facebook wall earlier on, and one of the people who often replies, who's more to the right of me, Frank Roach's, has said, oh, well, it's only these small-time people who aren't in it. So what it is Mark Drakeford is the only person in the Labour Party who's actually in charge of, sort of in charge of a country. He's the First Minister of Wales, and he's like, by a lot of people's standards, seems a lovely man. He's to the left of the Labour Party. He's popular. He's doing a good job. Looks like he'll get elected again. He's going to do the World Transform Festival, which is a fringe festival to the Labour Party conference, and certain only the best kind of people are invited to be on the World Transformed, such as Socialist Think Tank. But anyway, so we're going to be there in a couple of weeks' time, doing a live broadcast from there. But also on the bill of people like Jeremy Corbyn and Ken Loach and people like that. So on an entirely different bill to them, because there's all sorts of things going on. If anyone's ever been to any kind of festival, whether that's a politics one or anything like that, you'll know that you'll have something going on one area. Maybe like if it's a music festival, it'll be the main stage, and then there'll be different tents around. There'll be different things going on. All sorts of different things going on. And a couple of Labour right people have started going, oh, Mark Drakeford's terrible, he's going to be on the World Transformed. Now, I'm not sure if that's because the World Transformed is actually interesting, because a lot of interesting and fun things happen there, and I know those people have an aversion to anything either interesting or fun, and a lot of the time helpful. But, they found out Ken Loach, beloved internationally famous film director, will be there, and Jeremy Corbyn is going to do a keynote speech there, and Mark Drakeford's going to be there talking about universal basic income. So they're saying he shouldn't do that, and he's a really naughty man, because, you can't be in the same place as Jeremy Corbyn and Ken Loach, because the world will melt. And then what also happened as well is during this show, the Board of Deputies, that famous Labour supporting group that all seem to support the Conservative Party, and who say that they speak for the Jewish community, despite a lot of Jewish people I know saying they don't in any way, shape or form speak for them, and they actually really dislike their quite right-wing view of the world, have come out and put Mark Drakeford under a lot of pressure. So Mark Drakeford is now putting himself in a situation where he will be accused of anti-Semitism by association with a festival. And if you want me to read what the Board of Deputies of British Jews has said, we are deeply concerned by... Board of Deputy press comments on the deeply disturbing news that Welsh First Minister Mark Drakeford is set to appear at a festival which will also feature people suspended or expelled from the Labour Party for their role in the party's anti-Semitism crisis in recent years. We are deeply concerned by this and have raised the matter with the First Minister's office and with Labour officials. It cannot be fitting for the First Minister and Welsh Labour leader to participate in events with people who have been suspended or expelled from Labour for their role in the party's anti-Semitism crisis over recent years. We call on Mr Drakeford to withdraw from this event and instead address the important topic of welfare reform at a more appropriate forum. From Marie Van Zyl, from the Board of Deputies of British Jews, who read into her. Just read into Marie Van Zyl and find out what kind of person she is. She isn't left wing, let's say. Let's put it that way.
No, this is the second half. Oh.
Hi, Barbara.
Everybody's saying hi to you.
So yeah. So this story's kind of grown and grown, and it's going to be the next. Anti-Semitism crisis in the Labour Party.
Oh man.
So yeah, I think that...
Is he only allowed then to speak at Labour Party festivals then?
Well, I don't know.
The World Transformed isn't a Labour Party festival, but he's only allowed to speak.
Association. That's the frightening thing, and we are right into McCarthyism.
And if you go to the other thing that was released by Young Labour today, they are saying that nobody who is associated with Palestine Solidarity, of which I'm a member, I'm quite happy to admit, because there's nothing wrong with caring about the Palestinian people and the plight of the Palestinian people. They're saying that nobody who is associated, who is a member of Palestine Solidarity, will be allowed to speak at the Labour Party conference this year. So that is
no. It was the young. No. It was the Young Labour conference that they're trying to organise, and they've used it as a reason to say we can't we haven't got the time to okay all of your speakers because we don't want anyone from Palestinian Solidarity Campaign or Jeremy Corbyn. So if you have any of them, it won't be allowed to go ahead. But because we haven't got time to find out who all your speakers are going to be and vet them all, you can't have your conference. And they're still trying to get the go ahead from David Evans as to whether or not
a conference.
Yeah.
But they're worried in case they have people who are pro-Palestine there.
I think they're more worried about having a young Labour conference. It seems like they're going out of their way. They're now expelling young members for saying that young members don't like the Labour Party anymore. So it's all...
I concur with Leanne, who has just posted 3 poop emojis.
That was much more eloquently put, Leanne. Thank you. I should have just done that.
I'm much more with Carl Alexander Rossa, who says, I'm shocked, I tell you, but I would replace it with the proper word, which is doomed. We're doomed, I tell you. So it's horrific what's happening.
I don't know how people can take themselves seriously and do things like this. It's very silly. Very, very silly.
I thought you've got a plan, haven't you, though, for a motion for conference, Paul? So I'm going to get us all thrown out the party here. So your plan is that sort of that we start to expelling people on the grounds of future associations they may have, which with groups which are now acceptable but may in future be prescribed.
It was more of a joke than a plan. But what I did say was, the film Minority Report, where they find out what's going on in the future and then they come and arrest you for it before you've done the crime. Well, we could maybe do that in the Labour Party. But let's see if I can find exactly what I said. We have reason. So they could send a letter to you saying, we have reason to believe that you will at some point in the future you will associate with members of a group that will come into existence at a point further in the future. At a third point in the future, the Labour Party will deem the group to be a threat to capitalism and the managerial class we represent, and will therefore prescribe the group. We have therefore taken the decision to expel you from the Labour Party. If you are able to provide evidence that you will not speak to a person or persons that may join a group that could come into existence in the future, or that the Labour Party will not deem any potential group to be against its values, please provide this in writing within 7 days. And that appears to be... it's not even really that far-fetched anymore. So, because a lot of people have been sent letters saying they should... They've been told they're being expelled because they've prescribed a group that someone had spoken to in the past when the group wasn't prescribed.
That's right. I don't think... Neil Terry says it's satire, but it's not, Neil, because we're chucking people out of the Labour Party for... cozying up to a group which wasn't prescribed by the party when they cozied up to them. Now, how is that acceptable? How is that legal?
Well, it might not be, isn't it? There are legal cases going through.
They won't deal because it's a membership organisation, so the law really doesn't apply to, It's like, when people talk about no platforming people. Well, you can't no platform someone, really. You can just say, well, if I decided to, on Socialist Night Live, say to John, would you like to come on Socialist Night Live on Saturday? And then say, actually, John, I've got a different guest. I wouldn't have no platformed him. I'd have just said, you're not coming on. And a lot of people are mistaken this no platforming for that. So, but you're allowed to. I would be perfectly allowed to do that in the Labour Party. They seem to be okay with the Labour Party setting rules that don't necessarily have any basis in sense.
Anyway, I mean, my where I am is I am going back to grassroots stuff, because all of this stuff hurts my head and hurts my heart. Really. But I know that if I work in my local community, I can make good things happen, and I will just let other people scrap about things that I don't really fully understand, I don't think, and I'll just try keeping doing good in the world. And I think that's all that we can do. But we'll watch out to see what happens with this Mark Drakeford story for sure. I mean, because you're totally right. When you agree to, you can. It's perfectly reasonable to ask somebody to check out who they are, sharing a direct platform with, like who else is going to be on the panel if you're going to be able. It's fair enough to ask people to do that, but when you can't expect somebody to know every speaker at a conference before you sign up to it. Like,
Well,
how hard is that?
what about speaking at Parliament? Like,
Eh?
or the front bench of the Labour Party are quite happy to share a platform with Conservatives. They do it regularly. So how can someone who is a member of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, be someone who is so dreadful that you can't even share a platform with him in a different room? It's not even a platform, but you can like share a platform with your political opponents. I always thought the Labour Party and the Conservative Party were meant to be a bit yin and yang. They should be pretty opposed to one another, but it doesn't seem to be the case.
I haven't seen this thing about the young members conference either. But again, the whole point of having young members conferences and women's conferences is so that minority people who don't hold the power in our society get a chance to talk about the things that they think are important. So if you're going to go straight in and censor them and basically say, oh, you don't get a conference after all, especially when you look at that particular dynamic, it's very much like big boring granddad says you're not allowed to have a conference until you've cleared your room. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? Anyway, but I have not looked it up, so I will look it up properly before I say anything else and get myself
into
suspended.
trouble. Throw up the Labour Party.
Let's not.
But if he gets kicked out for that reason, though, and we're hosting one of the shows there, does that mean we're next to go?
I know.
And then does that mean you all are, because you've appeared on this before we went to the World Transformed?
What about
then all of you
listening?
watching?
But there's people who've listened to these shows,
and they've done so
God.
unironically. They do. If you're listening to this ironically, make sure that you pull a face and have a photo selfie of you before. Yeah, like that.
Chris Hood, I can't keep quiet about this one. Before it disappears off the bottom? What are the panel's thoughts on the recent actions of XR in London? Hooray, hooray, hooray. Nobody, not even the left, is taking this crisis, this climate crisis, sufficiently seriously. Certainly not Boris and his crowd. Those people are heroes because they're toughened up against him. The police are actively working against them. You wish that they worked in the same way against other groups, and sort of they just plow on. They are so careful about doing things right. They're training people before they go on the marches. They're recruiting all the time. They are absolutely brilliant. And I'm in the Northern Echo saying they have to win. They have to win. And if they don't win, then just you watch and see what happens to your world. Well done, XR. And if I were brave enough and it wasn't the pandemic, I'd be there with them. They put me to shame. Thank you. If you're an XR member watching, brilliant. I applaud you.
Left are too busy arguing over the Labour Party. I think maybe we probably should do more things like XR. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're just brilliant. And so outrageous. I mean, chucking red paint all over institutions that support fossil fuels, invest in fossil fuels. I would never dare do that. Would you dare do that? And it's just so opposite, and so correct that they should do it. And then super gluing you off to things. I mean, I would never do that because what if they tried to pull you off? It'd hurt like hell, wouldn't it? It'd rip all your skin up and that. And so they'd be just absolutely brilliant. I think Kat Cray, what I said to BBC question and any answers was that look at what XR are doing and compare it to what the suffragettes did to give you the bloody vote. Just compare it. XR are pussies compared with the suffragettes, and sort of we are absolutely privileged to have these people representing us so wisely and so responsibility in acts of civil disobedience, an absolutely correct non-violent way of going about protest. Fabulous, and sort of, and pray God that it doesn't come to acting like the suffragettes. But these people gave you your vote, Kat Cray, and they did much, much worse. I'll climb down off me first smoke box.
I think Kat would be right up there, to be fair. Like, knowing Kat, she'd be, if there were suffragettes about, I think she'd be with them. Knowing Kat.
That's an outspoken person, Kat Cray. You must come on the show, Kat. So sort of,
again.
A good rousting about.
Just so you know, John, you can super glue yourself to things in confidence, because Neil says they use a solution to undo the glue to melt.
No, I wouldn't trust them. They enjoy hurting me when they pull. It's like pulling off a plaster in hospital. I want to pull it off myself in the shower. Sort of, what is the solution, Neil? I need some of it. So when it came to it, I said, no, I'll do it myself. I'll unglue myself.
Neil, come on the show. Absolutely. The more the merrier. We definitely need more people. What was I going to say? I was going to say something and I can't remember what it was. I should have written it down. Never mind. That is the high quality, high standard of of what we get on Facebook.
Political muted has become famous.
Yeah. Rambling, you wish we were muted. No, it's gone.
Okay. Mum, it's my first day of work in ages tomorrow.
Yeah.
I ride my bike in. I might go to sleep at some point tonight.
Yeah, we should do that.
Laura looks in favour of sleep.
You are at work, which means that I am at home, working from home with 2 young children and a poodle dog. So yes, sleep.
Yeah.
The dog. Love to the dog.
Yeah, she hurt her leg jumping off something high.
We walked her too far in Whitby and she's tired.
Could be that, yeah.
Right then, so I am going to say, if you have not liked this video, if you want to do the tiniest, most insignificant thing to support us, remember to like this video or wherever you are. Just give it a click. That's all you need to do. If you like us a little bit more than that, you could share it. And if you don't already, make sure you subscribe. We are on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitch. Are we anywhere else?
Instagram.
We're on podcast. There we go. Whatever podcast app you use, even Spotify, we're on there. Just search Socialist Think Tank, and there's tons and tons of shows for you to catch up on if you do feel like you want to hear our fantastic, lovely, lilting northern voices before you go to bed at night. So please do all of those things, and remember, you can become a member and it's free, and it just gives you a little bit extra access to us when I'm talking about chickens at 3 o'clock in the morning. So thank you. Are we on Periscope, Mark? We're on Periscope? I don't know.
Yeah, Periscope. Periscope doesn't exist anymore. It's Twitter bought it, so it's now Twitter Live.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah.
It's been lovely having your fantastic comments. Thank you so much. And we will be back. We are on Political Unmuted every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock. And we talk about things that you have voted for us to talk about in the Political Unmuted Facebook group. If you've not found that yet, you can search that. Great. All right, then we're going to say bye-bye, everybody.
Nicely done. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Keep the red flag flying here.